Have you ever noticed someone who shifts the whole mood of a room without saying a word? They don't argue. They don't explain. They step back. And the energy in the room bends. It looks mysterious, but it's a power you can tap into. Now, imagine if you stopped reacting to everything immediately. What if you chose silence over defense, pause over impulse? Your instinct might say, "They'll forget me. I'll lose ground." But in reality, your absence speaks louder than constant presence. In your workplace, think about that colleague who's always available, always the first to answer. At first, they seem indispensable, but soon, their effort is expected and overlooked. Compare that to the person who is deliberate. They don't rush. And because they're selective, their words and time carry more weight. It's the same in personal relationships. The friend or partner who's always there is often taken for granted until they step back. And suddenly, their absence hits harder than any words. This isn't manipulation. It's energy mastery. And yes, at first it feels uncomfortable. You might feel guilty for pulling back. But Jung reminded us, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. So pay attention. Who becomes unsettled when you withdraw? Who pushes harder to pull you back in? These reactions reveal the hidden dynamics you've been trapped in. The truth is, endless availability drains your power. But when you choose to step back, with awareness and strength, you reclaim it. In this video, we'll explore how Carl Jung's insights reveal the power of withdrawal, and how learning to step back can transform not just your relationships, but your entire sense of self. Because the moment you stop being constantly available, everything changes. Part 1. The myth of constant availability. From the moment you were a child, you were taught one silent rule: be available, and you will be valued. At school, you were praised for raising your hand first. At home, you were told you were good when you obeyed and didn't question. You learned early on, being accessible equals being worthy. This belief followed you into adulthood. In work, you reply instantly, say yes to extra tasks, and jump into meetings, even when you're exhausted. In personal life, you respond late at night, cancel your own plans, and stretch yourself thin to avoid disappointing anyone. At first, it feels like a strength, like kindness or loyalty. But over time, a quiet truth settles in. The more available you are, the more invisible you become. Carl Jung had a name for this trap: the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted by society. It's not fake, but it's incomplete. It's the polished version of ourselves that fits into others' expectations. You say, "I'm reliable, I'm helpful." But behind that mask, resentment, fatigue, quiet emptiness. Here's the danger. The more you identify with the persona, the helper, the fixer, the one who's always there, the more you lose touch with your authentic self. Now add social media into the equation. We live in a world that rewards instant replies, constant updates, and 24/7 engagement. Leave someone on scene, and you feel guilty. Wait too long to answer, and you fear they'll think you don't care. This constant availability creates a loop. You post to stay relevant. You respond quickly to prove your presence. You overextend just to maintain connection. But inside, you feel tired. And worse, you feel unseen. Because no matter how much you give, it never seems to be enough. And ironically, the more available you are, the less valued you become. That's the paradox. In psychology, what's too predictable becomes less respected. Like a resource that's always abundant, you're taken for granted. The always available coworker is overlooked. The endlessly generous friend is ignored. and you begin to feel like a background character in everyone else's story. Jung warned about this. When we over-identify with our persona, we abandon the self. We become puppets of what others want us to be. A tension in your chest, a tiredness sleep can't fix, a quiet ache whispering, "You're disappearing." These are not passing moods. They're warning signs. True respect doesn't come from overgiving. It comes from balance, from intentional presence. Think of the people you admire. They're not always available. Their time is valuable because they've learned to protect it. Their silence makes their words louder. Their boundaries make their energy sacred. This shift, from reactive to intentional, changes how people perceive you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. But change is hard. The first time you say no, delay a reply, or skip being the reliable one, it feels wrong. You fear rejection. You wonder if you're selfish. Some people will push back. They'll accuse you of changing. But what's really happening is, they're losing control of the version of you they were used to. And that's okay. Because individuation, as Jung said, begins when you step away from the mask, when you reconnect with your own energy, when you stop being everywhere and start returning to yourself. So pause. Ask yourself, where am I too available? Who expects instant access to me? What would happen if just once I chose silence instead of reaction? In the next part, we'll uncover the hidden cost of emotional reactivity and how it drains not just your time, but your power. Because protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's self-respect. Part 2. The hidden cost of emotional reactivity. Carl Jung didn't see the mind as a machine that simply reacts. He saw it as an energy system. Every thought, emotion, and especially every reaction costs something. Jung described psychic energy as the dynamic force that flows through thoughts, instincts, and inner tension, fueling both creation and conflict. And here's the truth. Every time you react impulsively, especially to things that don't matter, you burn that fuel. Someone sends a passive-aggressive message. You snap back. You scroll social media, see something offensive, and dive into a long debate. It feels justified in the moment, but hours later, you're tired, frustrated, and mentally scattered. Jung said, "That which you resist persists. The more you engage with every trigger, the more those triggers own you." This is the hidden cost of emotional reactivity. You think you're standing up for yourself, but in truth, you're leaking energy, fighting battles that don't nourish you. And here's the deeper danger. The more drained you are, the more vulnerable you become. Because when your energy is low, your clarity is compromised. You're more likely to say yes when you mean no. You're more likely to seek validation, and more likely to get pulled into unnecessary conflict. Manipulative people notice this. They don't need to be loud. They just need to poke your triggers. And when you react, they gain control. It's a cycle. You feel wronged, you react, you feel drained, you become easier to control. Repeat. Think of how often this plays out online. You post something meaningful, and someone comments something rude. You feel the urge to reply, to correct them. But why? What's the real cost of that reaction? Your energy, your mental space, your peace, or in your personal life? Someone close to you says something that hits a sensitive spot. You explode, not because of that one moment, but because of years of unprocessed emotion. And suddenly, a small spark becomes a wildfire. Jung emphasized that a healthy psyche knows how to conserve energy. That doesn't mean you repress emotions. It means you choose when and how to respond. So how do you start protecting your psychic energy? Step 1. Awareness. Notice your patterns. Ask yourself, what kinds of comments or situations make me lose my calm? Are there people who regularly provoke me? What fears or insecurities lie underneath those reactions? Step 2. Pause. When you feel triggered, take a breath. Ask, is this worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Step 3. Set energetic boundaries. That might mean not checking your phone after a certain time, delaying responses to avoid emotional impulse, choosing silence over explaining, leaving a room instead of escalating a conflict. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you conscious. Because the truth is, you don't owe anyone your immediate response. You don't owe anyone your peace. And once you reclaim that peace, something shifts. Your mind clears, your emotions stabilize, and your presence strengthens. Jung believed real power lies in the ability to act with intention, not in reacting to every storm that passes. So the next time you feel the pull to defend, justify, or lash out, pause. Protect your energy. Not everything deserves your fire. In the next part, we'll go deeper into how others feed on your emotional reactions and why your silence is the most powerful way to reclaim control. Part 3. Projection. The game of manipulation. Carl Jung identified one of the most powerful and often invisible forces in relationships: projection. Projection happens when someone unconsciously transfers their inner fears, shame, or unmet needs onto another person. Instead of facing their own emotional baggage, they offload it onto you. This isn't always malicious. In fact, it's often unconscious. Projection is a defense mechanism. It protects the ego by allowing people to disown the parts of themselves they don't want to face. But the one who carries the weight of that disowned part? You. You reflect what they refuse to see. Here's how it shows up. A friend accuses you of being selfish, when deep down, they are the one who can't give. A partner calls you too emotional because they are terrified of their own vulnerability. A coworker blames you for failure because they can't admit their own mistakes. At first, you might internalize it. You soften your voice, over-explain, adjust yourself to maintain peace. But slowly, something starts to feel wrong. Because it is. The more you comply with their projections, the more you get locked into a false role, one created by someone else's avoidance. Jung warned, this isn't just about what others put onto you. It's also about what you unconsciously agree to play. When you're overly available, always trying to soothe, explain, fix, you make yourself an easy target. Let's ground this with an example. Imagine a friend who always calls during a crisis. You're their emotional lifeline. But the one time you delay your reply, they say, "You've changed. You don't care anymore." Why? Because you've stepped out of the script. You've stopped serving the emotional function they assigned to you. Or think about a relationship built on constant validation. The moment you withhold reaction, the moment you set a boundary, the other person lashes out, not because of what you've done, but because they can no longer control the narrative. Here's the insight. When you stop reacting, you force people to face themselves. And many don't want to. Your silence becomes a mirror. Your withdrawal highlights the void they were using you to fill, and they panic. That's when the pressure starts. You're distant. You're not the same. After all I've done for you. It's not about you. It's about the role you've stopped playing. But stepping out of that role is part of a bigger process, what Jung called individuation. It means becoming whole. And wholeness requires you to reclaim your energy, your space, and your identity from the hands of others. Yes, this can be messy. You may feel guilt, fear, even self-doubt. Old conditioning whispers, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I should just explain one more time. But that's not compassion, it's conditioning. It's the fear of losing a connection that was never based on your true self. So how do you break free from projection? First, recognize the patterns. Ask yourself, do I feel drained after certain people? Do I feel like I constantly have to justify myself? Are there recurring moments of guilt or obligation? Second, practice conscious withdrawal. This doesn't mean shutting down emotionally or ghosting people. It means stepping back with clarity. Let others sit in their discomfort. Don't rush to rescue them from it. Third, know what's yours and what isn't. Their disappointment is not your fault. Their anger is not your job to fix. Your only responsibility is to protect your peace. Jung wrote, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you stop reacting, you stop enabling. You become the catalyst, not for comfort, but for real confrontation. You bring unconscious games into the light. Yes, it may feel like you're disrupting the peace, but in truth, you're ending a pattern that was never real peace to begin with. In the next part, we'll explore how silence becomes your sharpest tool, not to hide, but to reclaim your strength and rewrite the emotional script others keep handing you. Because when you stop reacting, you stop playing the game. And that's when everything changes. Part 4. The Silent Revolution. Harnessing True Power. Carl Jung believed that silence isn't emptiness, it's a space of pure potential. In today's world, we're conditioned to believe that power comes from being vocal, fast, and visible. Say something quickly. Post something now. React before you lose your place. But most of that behavior is driven not by confidence, but by fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of not being enough. But what if silence isn't weakness, but mastery? Think of the people you respect most. They aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones who hold their space, who listen longer than they speak, who only move when it matters. Take Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. He doesn't shout. He doesn't dominate conversations. But when he speaks, every word matters, because he speaks with deliberate intent. His silence is part of his strength. Or Barack Obama, known for the intentional pause. In debates, he wouldn't rush to answer. He let silence linger. That pause, that presence, made people lean in, not away. That's not passivity. That's strategic silence. And it's a skill you can learn. How to practice conscious silence. 1. Get comfortable with discomfort. Most of us can't tolerate silence. We rush to fill awkward pauses. We jump to defend ourselves the moment we feel attacked. Instead, try letting the silence stretch. Let others sit with their own words. Let your stillness become presence. 2. Delay your response. You don't owe anyone an instant reply. Let emotions settle before you speak. Often, what feels urgent in the moment doesn't matter 10 minutes later. 3. Make your words count. When you do choose to speak, do it with purpose. No need to over-explain or justify. Say what matters and stop. You'll find that people listen more when you speak less. Why silence commands respect. Silence creates distance, and distance creates value. It's basic psychology. What is scarce becomes precious. This is true in every arena. In business, the consultant who doesn't answer every email immediately is more respected than the one who's always available. In relationships, the partner who maintains boundaries is often more desired than the one who constantly gives in. Sometimes, your absence speaks louder than your presence, and people notice. The less reactive you are, the more others begin to respect your space. The real power of silence. Jung taught that becoming your true self, what he called individuation, requires stepping back. In silence, you hear your own voice again. In stillness, your priorities realign. But this change will challenge others. Some people will be disturbed by your quiet. They'll say, "You've changed. You're distant." But what they really mean is, you're no longer playing the role I relied on. And that's okay, because something powerful begins to happen. You stop being a pawn in emotional games. You become a player, a strategist of your own life. So the next time you feel the urge to jump in, react, or explain, pause. Ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Or is silence the smarter move? Because silence isn't retreat, it's command, without a word. In the final part, we'll explore what happens when you carry this silence into the deepest parts of yourself, how it becomes not just a boundary, but a source of identity and rebirth. The solitude of the strong. Here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you stop being available for everyone, you become truly valuable. But with that value comes something most people aren't prepared for: solitude. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even painful. You're so used to being needed, to being connected, to being part of everyone's story, that when you pull back, the silence feels heavy. You might question yourself. Am I losing people? Am I being too harsh? Am I pushing too far? But here's what you need to understand. That initial loneliness isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a rite of passage. It's the space where your rebirth begins. Carl Jung taught that individuation, becoming whole, requires separation from the collective noise. It requires stepping back, even if that means being misunderstood, even if it means walking alone for a while. This is the solitude of the strong, the solitude of those who no longer betray themselves just to be accepted, the solitude of those who understand that peace is worth more than approval. And in that solitude, something shifts. Where there was anxiety, peace enters. Where there was neediness, strength is born. And where there was self-doubt, clarity starts to shine. So now I ask you directly, are you willing to step into that solitude? Are you ready to trade temporary comfort for lasting freedom? Are you brave enough to be misunderstood in order to be true to yourself? If your answer is yes, or even if you're just beginning to explore this path, type in the comments, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many of us are ready to step into this new chapter together. And remember, this journey doesn't end here. In the next video, we'll go even deeper, exploring how to rebuild your sense of self from the inside out, so you don't just protect your energy, you transform your entire reality. Click on the next video, because once you master silence, you don't just escape the game. You start designing it. See you there.